Okay, you have your screen all taped up. All the tape is covering up everything. Remember I said you wanted to have at least 1 inch to 2 inches of emulsion that was bigger than your design. The reason is because you want to have your tape go past and overlap that emulsion. Okay? You don't want to have it just right to that edge. You want to have at least 1/2 inch or more. That's why you want that 1 inch to 2 inches extra emulsion past your design. So this is all set up and ready to go on our press now. So it's going to go up just like this. And if you remember that it's actually facing backwards from us. You can see on the one that's already been done with our graphic design, it's backwards facing away from us. And this is the setup for our t-shirts. So now we need to set up our press and we need to set up our palette. Okay? First off, we need to select our right size palettes. There's different palettes for different things. This is a generic standard size shirt palette. There's other palettes that are set up for printing different things, such as sleeves, smaller shirts, or larger shirts, depending on the size of your screen that you have. Make sure you select the right palette for your design. Now, I need to protect this palette because I use this palette over and over and over again. Also, I'm going to be drawing on this so I can set up my design and center this on there. So to do this, I'm going to use what's called my palette tape. Palette tape is kind of the same consistency as masking tape. It's a little bit more sturdy though because it has to withstand some heat as well. So I'm going to put this on there. I'm going to need my small squeegee, and I'm also going to need my knife to cut this with as well. So to put this on, I'm just going to take off some of this overlap with this. Notice that it's overlapping the back and it's overlapping the sides on equal distances as well. I'm going to squeegee this down. Be careful not to get any wrinkles or bubbles in there. As I pull this out, I can now take my squeegee and squeegee this down. Carefully go in one direction. I'm trying to get out as many bubbles as. Now I take my knife, trim off the excess. Now, making sure that all of this is pressed down. I want to use some pretty good pressure with this to make sure this won't come up while I'm working. Okay? Now I'm just going to take my knife, just go right along that edge. We don't want to have any overlapping. You want to be careful that you don't cut into the palette either. There's my excess. Let's throw that away. Now my palette's all protected. I'm going to use this to mark up my design. Okay? I have my standard shirt that's here. I know that if I have this shirt on, where do I want my design? Well, I need to decide where I want that on my shirt. Okay? So measuring from this top to where I want it. Now a simple way to figure that out would be to put this on my palette. I know that I want this to be about 2 to 3 inches down, so I take my ruler, measure from the top. I want this to be about 3 inches down from here. Now I can measure from the top up here how far that is down to there, and that's about 8 inches. So I want my design to be 8 inches from the top, or I can even measure it from the bottom, which is 2 inches from the bottom. Okay? So I can take off my shirt. I can draw a line down the center to help me line up my design. And I'm also going to put a 2-inch mark from the bottom since I know it's going to be 2 inches. I could do the opposite, do 8 inches from the top too. Where your Sharpie marker comes in, I know that this is a 16-inch palette all the way across, so half of that would be 8. So I'm going to put a mark at 8 inches, and then just put a center mark all the way down. There we go. I also know that that needs to be 2 inches from the bottom, so I'm going to put a 2-inch mark from the bottom as well. Now I can center my design quite easily because I know that this is 11 inches, so that I know that this should have 2.5 inches on either side. I can put a mark at 2.5 inches on either side as well. Now I have 2 colors with my design. I have one color that's going to be for my graphic design, my wording, and the other color is going to be the color that's behind it. Okay. I need to line these up so that these match with my designs. Now, because I printed these out, they fit exactly together just like this. So, we'll come back to this one. I'm going to take my graphic design and line that up on there. And I'm going to tape this on one side. I'm just going to tape it on this far side over here. And I'll show you in a minute of why we're just going to tape that on one side. My other design that I know is going to overlap and line up exactly on this side. I'm going to line these up, and I'm going to tape this one on the opposite side. By doing this, I can line up my screens quite easily and line up my palette where it needs to be as well. So now I have my 2 designs. I have one color here, I have my other color here. I can set these aside like this and line up one at a time, or I can line them up both at the same time as well. I need to line up my screen with this color. So, in order to do that, it's quite easily, I need to first set up my palette, and my palette will line up with my screen that's on here. Okay. So I can line my screen up. I can also move my palette. There's adjustments on the bottom as well. I can move my palette back and forth. I can also change my screen too. Remember, it's much easier to move your screen back and forth than it is up and down. You have a very limited amount of space that you can move your screen. Line this up, kind of screw this in place. Let's see if that's adjusted. Perfect. Now, my screen is set on this this arm of this. It's lined up with where I want. You can actually see through here. I can actually look through my screen and see where my design comes up, and to see if I need to move that. You can see that white area if I needed to. I can move this over a little bit. Okay. Notice as I'm adjusting this though, I can bump this a little bit, and I'm screwing each one of these down a little bit at a time, not just one at a time. Okay. Both of these consistent. Okay. Now the problem is I also need to have some space under this screen. I don't want to have it perfectly flat. I want to have some space so that when I put that ink down, that the screen will actually touch my design, but then bounce back away from my design. We don't want it actually sticking to the shirts. So we have to have some space that's here. Okay? We'll come back to that. You want to come back to your other design. Do the same thing with that and line that one up as well. If this is off, I can change this design too. and change where this one needs to match up as well. If this one's off, set this one up too, so that way these both will line up exactly where I want them to. Okay. Notice this one has some space in it. Okay. Once those are all set, they're all lined up, I don't need to worry about these anymore. They're all set. Okay. Once these are all lined up, I can take these off. Save them though, always save these. Now I have to have some space in between my screen and my design or my palette. Okay? In order to do this, we'll need some tools, some wrenches, and also a nice piece of cardboard, something that's thick enough, cardstock, anything like that, that can come in between that, because that is the space that we need. Okay. There are some bolts on the back of here that adjusts the screen in two different ways. Either adjusts it up and down or adjusts it this way as well. Okay. So you'll have to adjust these in the back. Making sure your arm's all the way down. You should have this set up so that you have that space using our cardboard. If I do this correctly, once this comes down and hits, I should have some space in between my design and my palette. Almost there. I need to make it just a little bit more. Change this some more. Now I have that space in between my design and my palette. Okay. Next, we're going to go ahead and get our ink here in a minute too.